Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Mohammad Sohail Khan. In this particular session, I will be talking about organizational development practitioner. So the main learning objective of this particular session will include the characteristics of OD practitioner, what are the skills that OD practitioner should have, what are the core competencies that are kind of needed in an OD practitioner, and then we'll talk about the roles and ethical conflicts that most of the time the OD practitioner faces. So let's talk about OD practitioner in detail now. So the literature basically divides the type of OD practitioner in three basic categories. So the first category talks about the internal and external consultants. The second category are the professional OD consultants. And the third category are basically the managers and administrators who are somehow involved in any kind of OD related activities in that particular organization. So the first category basically, the OD literature basically talks about internal and external consultants in variety of ways. So it's a different paradigm to think in terms of external and internal OD consultants. For example, the internal OD consultants are the one who are the member of that particular organization in some way. So for example, they are working in some kind in that particular organization, and also they are engaging in some kind of OD related activities for that particular organization. External consultants are basically the new hires or the ones that are basically just being hired for doing that kind of that particular OD related activity. Then there's a whole debate of or whether the internal consultants are the right ones or the external consultants are the right ones in terms of doing any OD related activities. So while talking in details about the internal external consultants, if we just see the framework of OD consulting in terms of how basically an OD consultant entering into the contract with particular organization. What is the entering criteria? What is the contracting criteria? What are the steps that are in that OD consultant is basically engaged in terms of diagnosing the particular organization? What are the intervening steps or the intervening criteria? And then the evaluating criteria or the evaluating phases of that particular OD related activity. So in terms of just looking at the pros and cons of internal consultants, I would say in terms of internal consultants, the OD consultant is already had a ready access to the client. So for example, if you're just thinking any particular organization as a client, internal consultant has already a ready access to that client, so because they are already working in that particular organization. In terms of external consultants, definitely there's a new phase of building that relationships. However, the internal consultants already had a built relationships with that particular organization. If we just go into the details, internal consultants basically know about the norms, attitude, values, culture of that particular organization. However, external consultant either need to learn about all those company jargons or need to understand the organizational culture. So it will take some time. It will take some time for the external consultants. In terms of, if we just think in terms of time dimension, all those activities that I have already explained, knowing about the culture, building the relationship, have a readily access to the clients. Those kinds of activities basically help internal consultant to become like time efficient in some way, so they can start their activity from the very first day. However, for the external consultants, they need to build up a relationships and definitely on their part it would be time consuming as well. In terms of contracting, if we say the external consultants need to be really formal in terms of documentation, in terms of contracting. However, for the internal consultants, there could be any informal agreements because they were also a part of that particular organization in some way. For external consultants, information guarding or information confidentiality is also a big hurdle, I would say, because it will take so much effort and time for the external consultant to have all those data that will be really important in terms of diagnosing the solution for any particular problem for which the OD consultants are being hired. However, in the case of internal consultants, open information can be really open or can be less confidential in some way. And obviously, the main advantage of being internal is basically they know the culture of that organization, they know their way to go to get that particular data or that particular information from someone. In terms of diagnosing, for example, or external consultant needs to be really experienced in terms of getting the contract as well. Also, an organization will only give importance to their diagnosing or solution when they have a good repute in the market. Those are the things that are not really attached with the internal consultants. So for example, internal consultants prestige is not on stake if while diagnosing a solution to any particular organization. Then there's also a dimension of a political scenario. So for example, external consultant needs to be really political or needs to be really aware of the political activities that are really happening in that particular organization in terms of understanding the workflow of that organization, and also in terms of data gathering for that particular matter. However, I think so the internal consultants already knows the culture for that particular organization, so it's not a must thing to do for that particular OD consultant. Now let's talk about the some of the professionals OD consultant and what do we mean by this category. So while we're talking about the professional OD consultants, we are talking about the people that are really engaged in OD related activities and that have experience of couple of years in terms of working in this field. So for example, we are talking about the experienced OD consultant. We are talking about the OD consultant that are basically professional in nature in some way. So for example, if we are talking about of a person who is really kind of a guru in compensation and benefits, we are talking about the experienced OD consultant that has an skill or expertise of working with compensation and benefits. The same goes with the TQM related activities. So for example, if a person is working as an OD consultant and who is being hired by any particular company or an organization so that their quality related matters can be solved, we are hiring or in the phase of hiring, or we will prefer a person or OD consultant that has an experience of working with TQM related activities in his or her past. And similarly goes with the people who are working as in information systems or information technology related areas. So what we mean by the professionals, we are talking about the people who are really working day in and day out in those areas, and those have that particular expertise in those areas. Those particular people or those particular consultants can be educated in that field. So for example, they tend to have, or they should have some kind of certificates, or they should have some kind of degrees in that particular field, in that OD related arena in some way. Then we are talking. Then let's move to the. Let's move. Now the third category is about the managers and administrators. So manager and administrators are the ones who are really working in some kind of hierarchical position in a particular organization, and they are somehow really engaged in OD related activities. So we are talking about people who can be an HR manager, but at the same time they are engaged in some OD related activities. So for example, if I am senior vice president of human resource working in any of the organization that is dealing with so managers and administrators are the category or the ones that are already working in some kind of hierarchical position in a particular organization, and at the same time the roles and responsibilities that are engaged in are kind of OD related activities. So let's take an example of senior vice president of human resources that is working in some kind of organization, and that particular member of that organization or that particular person is basically working as a TQM manager, or basically trying to improve quality related activities in that particular organization. So while that particular person is working as a senior vice president of HR, however, his or her roles and responsibilities also includes to work on the quality matters for that particular organization, or the improvement or increasing the quality matters for that particular organization. So in that particular role, that manager is working as an OD consultant. So we have to really understand these three types of those three categories or types of OD consultants or OD development practitioners in terms of understanding the OD literature. Now we'll talk about some of the competencies that are really important for OD practitioners in some way. So definitely it's not a complete list of activities or a complete list of competencies that an OD practitioner should have, but at least it covers some of the aspects or some of the skills or competencies that an OD practitioner should have in some way. So first of that would be intrapersonal Ex Skills. So intrapersonal Ex Skills talks about the self-awareness of OD practitioners. So when I'm talking about self-awareness, I'm talking about that OD consultants should know about their biasness. So this kind of competency or this kind of skill is really important for OD consultant, because an OD consultant should be free from bias while working on any project or while working on an OD related activities. This is really important in terms of understanding. So for example, when you are without bias, when an OD consultant is without bias, he or she will be able to perform better in that role. So for example, in that way, he or she is not just imposing his or her point of view on that particular organization. However, he or she is making the decision based on the data that he or she is gathering from that particular organization. Also, there is also a dimension of collaboration with the people of that particular organization. Once we are talking about the people of that particular organization, while the OD practitioner is kind of non-biased, and then it will be easy for that particular OD practitioner to become a part of that particular organization, or kind of engage with those people, or kind of collaborate with those people, so that it can help to diagnose a good solution first of all, and the most important thing would be to implement that solution and to make that solution a part of that particular culture, and to embed that solution into the organizational culture so that it becomes long lasting in some way. The second set of skills would be interpersonal skills. I think so. All the managers, at least, whether they are OD consultants or not, needs to have interpersonal skills as well. So interpersonal skills in an easy sense means that organizational members or needs to understand the viewpoint of that particular OD consultant. For that matter, OD consultant needs to have an ability to work with other people. Well, we need to have an ability to work with other people, and with whether it's a small group or the large group in that sense. So building up relationships, initiating in terms of building up relationships, in terms of having a trust with that group members or that particular employees of that particular organization. So those are the skills that are kind of basically needed by any OD practitioner if they need to survive in that particular market of consulting in some way. So let's talk about, also we'll talk about that interpersonal relationships also talks about the emotional intelligence dimensions. The OD consultant needs to be aware of the emotions of oneself, of himself or herself, and also needs to understand or read the emotions of others as well. This ability will definitely help that particular OD consultant to build up relationship, to build up long-lasting relationships. Then the general consultation skills in terms of doing the whole project seamless, in terms of doing the whole project without any delays or without any hurdles. An OD consultant needs to have a good consultation skills. So the good consultation skills means that they need to know the strengths and weaknesses of their own and strengths and weaknesses of their clients, so that once they have all those kinds of data, it will help them to engage in a good consulting relationship. So for example, that includes that they should have an ability to manage a whole project, to manage a consultation project. So while we are talking about the project management, it means that they should have an ability to enter into a contract with their clients, and also they should have an ability to end that particular project, because ending is the most important part of that consultation. And at the end of that ending, including that particular solution or embedding that particular solution into that culture of that organization is the key. So once organization members are able to understand that what's been expected from them, then half of that OD practitioner work is done. Then there's a whole part of doing the process. Once they know that this change is really necessary for them, once they know that whatever that OD practitioner is doing, it's not for that person's sake. Basically, it is for the betterment of that particular organization. It is basically being done to increase the effectiveness of that particular organization. That is the key. So OD practitioners should have that consultation skills so that people can really trust on them, that the solution that they are prescribing are the ones for example, if they follow those solutions, it will help their organization to improve or to grow in some way. Also, OD development theory, OD practitioner needs to know some kind of OD development theory in some way. So for example, they need to know the change theory. They need to know that how different models of organization development really apply in that particular organization. So the most common models are the ones that we already talked about in one of the videos, that basically are the plan change model, or the action research model, or the positive approach or appreciative inquiry approach model. So those are the kind of models or the theoretical approaches or the theoretical theories that an OD consultant needs to know or needs to understand in terms of working in this particular consultation field. Also, there are some kind of role demands on OD practitioners. So, for example, OD practitioner needs to understand where they stand. Let's put it this way. So, for example, if they are internal hire or if they are external hire. As we already talked about the internal versus external debate, we also talked about the internal OD consultant versus the external OD consultant. So the knowingness of that position really matters. It also helps OD consultants in terms of understanding the roles that is basically expected from them. Once that role is basically not clear to any of that OD practitioner, it will become hurdle in the whole consulting process. The same goes with the marginality dimension. Ability to straddle the boundaries. In terms of understanding the boundaries, OD consultants need to be really sharp. Understanding the boundaries means that from where one role ends and the next role began. So this is the most important criterion, I would say, and the most important dimension that the OD consultant should understand. Once we do not understand the marginality concept, once we do not understand the boundary concept, there is an issue of role clarity or role ambiguity. Once organizational consultant or organizational development consultant experience role ambiguity or not having a role clarity, it will become difficult for that particular OD consultant to stay in that particular organization, because that understanding of the role basically helps an OD consultant to guard their own interest, first of all, and secondly, respect the interest of the organizational members. So, for example, the OD consultants needs to know that they are not the leaders for that particular organization. They are not the managers for that particular organization. They are just being hired to perform some OD related activities that can help that particular organization to be effective in some way. So they should not act as a manager, they should not act as a leader, they should not act as a CEO of that particular organization. So understanding of the boundaries are really important in terms of doing their roles in a better way. The same goes with emotional demand. Emotional demand is also talks about some kind of boundaries that a OD consultant should know. So a OD consultant or OD development consultant should know the emotional related boundaries. They should know the anger management criteria. They should know that what are the boundaries, ethical boundaries that they should go into. So for example, if they are talking, if an OD consultant is basically hired for doing some kind of diversity related OD activity, then they should be really aware in terms of even calling people. Then they should be really aware in terms of calling by their name or by their title or by their gender. This is the basic example in terms of having emotional intelligence. So for example, if that particular OD consultant is working on any kind of diversity related OD activity, the gender intelligence, the cultural intelligence, the role intelligence needs to be really important for that particular OD consultant. They should not engage in any kind of activity, in any kind of discussion, in any kind of debate that basically somehow hurt the feelings of the people that are really working in that particular organization. Also, in terms of the orders, in terms of coerciveness, in terms of following or not following the order, OD consultant needs to be really aware of their limits and what is really expected from them. In terms of clashing with their values or attitudes or goals, in terms of having a clash with the organizational culture. So these are some of the aspects that OD consultants needs to be really understandable and needs to be really good in terms of gauging the emotional intelligence for that particular organization's member and at the same time of their own as well. Uses of knowledge and experience. This is kind of a broad topic in some way, and that basically covers the whole debate that we just discussed. So for example, it also talks about the knowledge and expertise of the client versus the knowledge and expertise of the OD consultant as well. Definitely OD consultant are being hired because of being an experience. However, at the same time, they should understand or needs to be really aware of the experience of that particular organization member that has an experience of couple of years by working in that organization. So nobody can expect that the outsider or the external OD consultant will know that organization well from the people who are really working in that organization. So the uses of knowledge and experience, basically understanding will really help in terms of understanding the roles for that particular OD consultant. Also, as we already talked about, the client versus consulting knowledge basically talks about also the boundaries for the consulting organization or the consultant and the client at the same time. So if we just see those two triangles in some way, the plans and implementation is kind of a key for the consultant. So their knowledge experience will help organization members to plan the implementation in some way. However, at the same time, if we just see at the bottom, the client may refuse to become involved in the consulting activities or in the solution activities that a particular OD consultant will propose. So we have to be really careful in terms of the client versus consultant knowledge. Definitely client will have more knowledge in terms of internal related activities, for example, in terms of understanding the culture, in terms of understanding the products and services, in terms of understanding the mission of that organization, in terms of understanding the vision and HR related activities and financial related activities for that particular organization. However, at the same time, organization members needs to be really understandable in terms of the knowledge of consultant at the same time. So for example, in the past, there are the clear boundaries for client versus consultant knowledge. However, as we talked about, that the new literature talks about the collaboration process. So in terms of collaboration process, client needs to understand the weakness and strength of the consultant, and the consultant needs to understand the weakness and the strength of the clients in some way. So once they are really understandable or understand the needs and responsibilities, the strengths and weaknesses of each other, somehow all those criterions or all those criterias basically blur in some way. So this is really important in terms of understanding the knowledge for both the parties. However, at the same time, OD consultants needs to be really aware in terms of understanding the professional ethics that should be expected from them. So we would say that there are some kind of ethical dilemmas in which the OD consultants really engaged in. Then there are sometimes ethical guidelines that are given to that particular ethical guidance that needs to be taken care of for that particular OD consultant. So let's talk about all those ethical dilemmas. So let's start with inputs stages. So values, goals, needs and abilities are the ones that are really helpful in terms of understanding the roles of each party. So for example, OD consultant needs to understand the values, goals, needs and abilities of the clients, and the clients basically needs to aware of the values and goals, needs and abilities of the OD consultant. Somehow it is recommendable or it is being recommended that both the parties should be really open in terms of having a contract or having displaying their values or attitudes in some way. So for example, one should not hide anything from a consultant, like we have been asked in the past, that one should not hide any information from a physician or a lawyer in some way. So that category or that sense also prevails while we are talking about the OD consultants. So values, goals, abilities, needs, skills, attitude needs to be transparent in some way that both parties really understand that. Once that antecedent part is really transparent or opaque in some way, it will help. It will help in terms of going through the whole process. So, for example, then we will expect less role conflict and role ambiguity from both the parties. So while we are talking about the role conflict or the role ambiguity, it means that OD consultant will not become unclear of what is expected from them. This is really important because if we understand, or if the OD practitioner understand the mission, vision of that particular organization, they should understand the values of that particular organization, they should understand the goals for which that particular organization is being striving for. Once all those things are really transparent, it will help organizational development consultant to not engage in any kind of role ambiguity. Role ambiguity is also minimized in a way that if it's a collaborative process in some way. Once organizational development practitioner engaged in the collaborative process, and they know that whatever they are doing in terms of diagnosing the solution are basically somehow also getting a nod from the people of that particular organization. However, for example, once all those activities are not done in the way that are being just discussed, OD consultants can engage in some kind of ethical dilemmas that are basically as follows. So, for example, misrepresentation is basically representing the problem or the solution in the way that is not actual in some way. Or misusing of data also talks about the uses of the data in not an appropriate way. So for example, they're not using the data in terms of proposing the right solution in some way. Also, at the same time, the coercive nature of OD consultant will also place an hurdle in the process of consulting for an OD consultant. So OD consultants should not coerce or force their decision on the organization members. So coerciveness or force in terms of if the organization members do not want to or do not wish to be a part of that particular OD process, OD consultants should not force them to do so. So this is really important in terms of understanding the nature of that particular consulting process. Values and goal conflict also, if in the beginning, like we're talking about in terms of input, if those values and goals and conflicts are not opaque or not clear from the very first instance, the value and goal conflict arises in each and every activity that an OD consultant be a part of. So for example, there can be some kind of solutions that an OD consultant or a consultant really propose, and that particular solution is really having a conflicted nature with the goals and attitude of that particular organization. The same goes with technical inaptness. So it means that OD consultant should not try to impose a solution or suggest a solution or implement a solution or intervention in which they personally are not skilled in. This is really important. So for example, if you are not understanding the technicalities of that particular intervention, OD consultant should not advise all those intervention to that particular organization, because at the end, if they cannot run through the process till the end, it will be really hard for the organization to become a part of that. Also, as described in other videos as well, regarding organizational development, that OD activities needs to embed in a culture. So for example, if an OD practitioner is not aware of the technicalities of any particular intervention, and for some reason if that particular solution is embedded in that particular organization, it will really backfire in some way. I hope that this particular session will help you understand the roles, attitudes, skills, competencies, ethical dilemmas that an organizational development consultant needs to be aware of. Thank you.